Welcome to Retirement Ramblings. I'm Scott. On today's video, we're going to cover the highlights of a 9-day trip that spanned 1,429 miles and went from Atlanta in the south to Luray, Virginia in the north, including 230 miles of the Blue Ridge Parkway from Cherry Lane, North Carolina, up to Afton, Virginia. If that sounds interesting to you, please stick around. I'm getting ready to show you the highlights. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoy. Before we get into the highlights, let me just give you a little idea about why we took this trip. For me, fall is my favorite time of the year, and I really appreciate the change of the leaves, and I really wanted to go kind of on a leaf peeping vacation. So I logged into the AAA website and did a variety of triptych searches to figure out where I could go to see, the leaves, in all their glory. And basically decided that we would drive from Atlanta up to the northern part of Virginia and take as much of the Blue Ridge Parkway as we possibly could for that purpose. And along the way, I looked for a variety of attractions of interest that wouldn't be too far off the Blue Ridge Parkway that we could enjoy along the way. Our first stop along the way was in South Carolina, where we went to the Aoi Nuclear Station on Lake Kiwi to see the world of energy. Aoi Nuclear Station is one of the nation's largest nuclear plants, and it's a pressurized water reactor, which means that the water doesn't boil because it's maintained under pressure within the units. There's 3 specific units at Aoi. Construction was begun in 1967, and then the first unit was commissioned in July of 1973, the second one in September of 74, and the third and final one in December of 1974. The Lake Kiwi Reservoir comprises 18,500 acres of water and has 300 miles of shoreline. So in overall, it takes up 26.1 miles. It's also home to 3 different types of bass, from spotted bass to largemouth bass to smallmouth bass, 2 types of trout, rainbow and brown trout, bluegills, yellow perch, among other fish. So it's a great outdoor playground for those in the area. After the World of Energy, we had planned to go on to the House of Flags Museum in Columbus, North Carolina, before stopping for the night in Hickory, North Carolina. Unfortunately, the House of Flags Museum was closed on Friday, so we couldn't attend that particular attraction. Our next stop was the Brushy Mountain Apple Festival in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, which is always held on the first Saturday of October, rain or shine. This year, the festival had approximately 160,000 people attend, which, from all accounts from the vendors, was the most they've seen in more than 5 years. The festival is basically an arts and crafts fair along with multiple stages for music to be performed. The city of North Wilkesboro shuts down and they sell roughly 8-foot sections of Main Street to craft vendors, and they do the entire length of Main Street, some of the ancillary perpendicular streets, and then there's a secondary level that runs behind Main Street that they also sell out on both sides. So you can spend the majority of the day there. There's also, like in most festivals, a variety of different foods to try, but it's really about the crafts and just having a good time, as well as being able to buy, a variety of Apple products. And I don't mean Apple devices. After the Apple Festival, we stayed the evening in Jonesville, North Carolina, before heading up to get on the Blue Ridge Parkway in Cherry Lane, North Carolina, about 25 miles from our hotel. And during that 25-mile drive, we crossed the Eastern Continental Divide, where the elevation was 2,972 feet. We're on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Heading towards Roanoke, Virginia. As you can tell, while our desire was to see the leaves at peak colors, that wasn't the case. According to the meteorologist, due to the changes in the weather, including the recent hurricane that came through the Carolinas and Virginia, the peak color change was delayed about 3 weeks. So now it looks like the end of October, 1st of November will be the peak season on the Blue Ridge. So while I really appreciated the drive, I was slightly disappointed that the colors weren't as vibrant as I had hoped they would be. Que sera, sera. So to break up the drive on the Blue Ridge Parkway, we split the trip into 2 parts. One where we went from Cherry Lane, North Carolina to Roanoke, Virginia, and the second leg from Roanoke, Virginia up to Afton, Virginia, before going on to Charlottesville. So in Roanoke, we used our time there to be able to go to the Virginia Museum of Transportation, and we had also hoped to go to the Pinball Museum, but we got there late on a Sunday and weren't able to fit both activities in on the same day. The Virginia Museum of Transportation has, among other things, an outside train yard where you can go view the locomotives, caboose, and other items such as trucks and buses. And then they have an interior kind of sections of the museum where they store cars and cutaways of airplanes and also cutaways of various locomotives that you can, climb into and, get additional experiences whereby you cannot do that when you're outside in the yard. The largest locomotive out in the yard is a Norfolk and Western Class A steam locomotive that was produced during the 1930s to the 1950s. 43 of them were built. The locomotive and the tender have a combined length of 121 feet 10 inches. The locomotive in this video is number 1218, and it was used to pull coal trains between Roanoke and Norfolk. It's the last remaining Class A. It was retired from service in July of 1959, and then in 1985 it was moved to Birmingham, Alabama, where it was restored to participate in passenger excursion service. The restoration took about 2 years, and it ran excursions from 1987 to 1991. It was officially retired from excursion service in 1994, and the engine is no longer operational. The automobile collection included at the Virginia Museum of Transportation includes a 1930 Graham Special 6, a 1914 Model T Touring, a 1936 Cadillac Fleetwood Coupe, a 1950 Studebaker Land Cruiser, 1977 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2, a 1970 Plymouth Superbird, in addition to many other vehicles. The one vehicle that surprised me was a General Motors EV1, the first mass-produced EV. It was built and leased by GM from 1996 to 1999 and subsequently discontinued in 2002. And you thought a Tesla was the first EV. And the last item of note at the Virginia Museum of Transportation was the operational model train setup that, you could watch from both the second level shown here, as well as children could watch, from the lower level with protection from plexiglass dividers. We're here today visiting Thomas Jefferson's Monticello.
And yet, with everything there is to see in this room, one of the things that people have always noticed first and talked about the most is just the clock on the wall. And if you take a look at the clock, you'll see why. It operates like a grandfather clock, so it's about like a raft. Which means that these ropes come out of the face with weights and they slowly descend. It takes 7 days to complete a cycle.
After leaving Monticello, we took a quick trip up to the Carter Mountain apple orchard at the top of the mountain adjacent to Monticello and bought some apple butter and a couple of cookies and just took in the views of the surrounding area before heading back to the hotel in Charlottesville for the evening. The next morning, we headed out to Laray Caverns, the largest caverns in the eastern United States, located in Luray, Virginia. This is a three-dimensional view, but actually what you're looking at is water reflecting the ceiling of Dream Lake. This section of the cavern is called Titan's Vale. The great stalagpipe organ in Laray Caverns was invented in 1954 by Leland W. Sprinkle of Springfield, Virginia, who worked at the Pentagon as a mathematician and electronics scientist. He began a 3-year project searching the vast chambers of the caverns with the aid of 13 English tuning forks, tapping potential formations. Stalactites were selected from over 3.5 acres of the cavern and altered to precisely match the tone needed to become part of what would eventually become the world's largest musical instrument. Electronic mallets were wired throughout the caverns and connected to a large 4 manual console. When a key is depressed, a tone occurs as the rubber-tipped plunger strikes the stalactite tuned to concert pitch. Today, the organ is played by activating an automated system which works in a manner like a child's music box. The organ is also fully capable of being played manually, as Leland Sprinkle did many years ago. This is the wishing well at Laray Caverns. This pool is drained every year, and the entire proceeds are donated for medical research, educational grants, and to other worthy charitable and nonprofit organizations. To date, almost $1.2 million has been collected and donated. Immediately adjacent to Laray Caverns is the Car and Carriage Museum and Toy Town Junction, both of which are included along with your ticket to the caverns. Toy Town Junction was an uneventful attraction for me, so I didn't take any photos. The Car and Carriage Museum, on the other hand, had quite a few interesting automobiles as part of their collection, from an 1897 Mercedes-Benz, one of the oldest cars in the country that's still in operating condition, to the precursor of the Chevy Volt, the 1908 Baker Electric, as well as the 1925 Rolls-Royce that was associated with silent film star Rudolph Valentino. Not far from Laray Caverns is the Virginia Museum of the Civil War, located in Newmarket, Virginia. The museum provides opportunities to reflect upon the Battle of Newmarket that occurred on May 15, 1864, with students from the Virginia Military Institute as young as 15 years old that fought in the battle. In addition to galleries, Tourist Information Center, they have an Emmy Award-winning film called The Field of Lost Shoes that's shown every hour, and there's a 300-acre battlefield park that preserves the core areas of the battlefield and historic Bushong Farm. We decided to check this out before heading down the road to Lexington, Virginia for the evening. Today we're at the Virginia Safari Park, getting ready to visit up to 1,000 animals as we drive through the park and feed them right from the car. That is so funny. They're just sitting by the gate waiting for you to come through with food. Look at the size of those oxen.
Okay.
Comes the other one. Here comes the other one.
Okay. Good. Okay, that's it. Okay, okay, okay. It's a pretty thing.
You're a good zebra. You're a good zebra. Yeah. Good boy. Yeah. Did you enjoy that food? Good. All right. What's your other buddy doing? You still eating all the stuff I spilled on the ground? Okay. Good deal. So after driving the car through the 3.5-mile loop inside the Safari Village, we returned the car to the parking lot, and then we decided to walk into the Safari Village component where you could just walk up to the animals and feed them and, view them through a variety of enclosures where they just weren't out walking alongside of your car. And I highly recommend taking a truck instead of a car if you decide to ever go to the Virginia Safari Village, so that you don't have to worry about the animals' horns ruining your paint as they come up to the vehicle to be fed. getting ready to go into the bungee feeding area. Let's see how this works. Close the first door before opening the next. No? Okay. Come on. It's shady up here. Come on. Yep, come on. There you go. This way. Come on. Come and get it. Got it? Okay. Okay. Good deal. Oh. There you go. There you go. Okay. He's back, Lynn. He wants some more behind you. my food. I want food.
Oh, I didn't see one laying on the ground.
Yeah. King cheetah. It's a giant anteater. Wow. It's over here in the corner.
Something calling on me.
Okay, hold on. Wow. After leaving the Virginia Safari Village, which is located in Natural Bridge, Virginia, we headed down the road to Danville, Virginia for the evening. The next morning, we headed out to the AAF Tank Museum, which after 42 years is closing its doors. And unfortunately at this point in time, the museum is a shell of its former self. According to management, the pandemic really hit the museum hard financially, and it's been unable to recover. And schools in the area don't seem to show an interest in visiting the museum to learn about ordnances and tanks. So the tanks and memorabilia are either being sold off or divvied up and sent to other museums and military bases where they can be displayed into the future. After leaving the AAF Tank Museum, we headed down the road to the North Carolina Aviation Museum and Hall of Fame in Asheboro, North Carolina. This museum is comprised of 2 hangars full of aircraft, along with associated memorabilia.
third overall among all ETO aces. No one scored more aerial victories in the North American P-51 than he. He was the best he could be to his life's end.
I blew George's wing numerous times. He was a quiet man, but he was a leader. He didn't seek any glory, but he deserves it.
After leaving the North Carolina Aviation Museum and Hall of Fame, we headed down the road to Greenville, South Carolina. I had hoped to get to Greenville, South Carolina in time to see the Friday night showing within the Hooper Planetarium of Starry Nights, but unfortunately, traffic prohibited us from making it before the start of the show. On the final day of our trip, we had expected to go to the Bob Campbell Geology Museum in Clemson, South Carolina, but unfortunately the weather didn't hold up, so we passed on visiting this museum and headed straight to Dahlonaga, Georgia to go to the Consolidated Gold Mine. At Consolidated Gold Mines, you're able to go 200 feet underground and take a 40-minute tour of the mine where they would extract gold from large quartz veins. And then following the tour, you're able to pan for gold, which takes about 15 minutes to get through one grouping of sand, potentially find 2 or 3 flecks of gold. Not something you want to spend a lot of time doing.
You're about to find out what it sounds like. Once I turn it off, there'll be an echo that you want to listen out for. So, if everybody's ready, we'll go in 3, 2, 1. Ah!
Oh, wow.
Pretty sweet, isn't it?
And finally, once we left Consolidated Gold Mines, after spending 9 days on the road, we are heading home sweet home. I hope you've enjoyed the highlights.